You're listening to American Medicine Today, presented by the Bonati Spine Institute, featuring the internationally acclaimed inventor of the Bonati spine procedures, Alfred Bonati, MD. Once again, here are Dr. Bonati and your host, Kimberly Bermel.
Actually, no, they are not here. Doc and Kimberly away on an assignment, which is classified, so we can't get into why that is. But I am Ethan Euchre. I'm here with Mr. Jeff Wagstaff.
And Ethan and I are going to hold the fort down today to tell you a little bit about the Bonati Spine Institute. Mm-hmm. If you or someone you love is suffering from neck, back pain, sciatica pain, you can't figure it out, we urge you, Bonati.com, research what Dr. Bonati does. He's not an imitator. He is the very, very best at what he does. Mm-hmm. Give him a call, or more importantly, go to Bonati.com.
Yep, that phone number, 855-267-0482. But we always say in radio, people they can't remember phone numbers, so Bonati.com.
Absolutely.
Check them out. Great show for you today. We'll talk with board-certified neurologist and New York Times best-selling author David Perlmutter. His book is called Grain Brain, which shows how you can prevent migraines, ADHD, and even depression simply by changing your diet. We'll also speak with Bruce Vannatta. You know about this story. He's a medical marvel who's the only known person to sever 5 major arteries and live to tell the tale. He also has an amazing story to tell us about that near-death experience. He claims he saw angels. It's been featured on Discovery Channel, History Channel. It's fantastic.
Reading the prep, it sounds like he was in and out of life a couple times through that, so we can't wait to talk to him.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting. Then we'll check in with Dr. Bonati to find out what's new in medicine today. But up first,
in today's Back to Life segment, we will talk to a patient of the Bonati Spine Institute who went from living a life that was restricted by pain and discomfort through their journey of finding the Bonati Spine Institute and are now living pain-free.
Joining us from Winter Haven, Florida, Sharon Floyd Davis. How you doing, Sharon?
I'm doing great. How are you all doing today?
Excellent.
We're awesome. Thank you for joining us.
We always want to hear.
You're welcome.
We love hearing the stories of Bonati's patients and his success stories. So why don't you start from the beginning? How did you start experiencing pain? What was that pain like? Where was it on your body? How did it affect your life? Take it away.
I was actually in my early when I first started experiencing back pain.
Early 30s?
And early 20s, actually.
You were breaking up a little bit. Say that again, Sharon.
In my early 20s. I was about 24, 25 years old.
Okay.
And I thought it was from, picking up my babies. And I lived with that pain for about 10 years before I started seeking medical treatment.
Now, did you try conservative treatments, chiropractor, stretching?
Absolutely. I tried every conservative treatment you can think of. I had physical therapy. I had a pain management doctor, actually, in my hometown. I had epidurals. I had facet injections. And finally, I had a friend that had heard about Bonati and kept telling me, why don't you check this place out?
So you were just tired of suffering?
I was so bad. My back would just lock up, and I literally could not breathe. And I could not, I'd be frozen in place.
Well, Sharon, tell us a little bit about when you initially reached out to Bonati, what that process was like.
I initially reached out to Bonati after a neurologist showed me some gates and appliances he wanted to put in my back, and it just seemed so wrong to me. I sent an MRI to Dr. Bonati's office. They viewed my MRI at no charge. A patient advocate returned a message to me saying that the doctors had looked at that and thought they could do a lot to help me. And it just started the ball rolling from there.
Okay, and so you obviously decided to make your way over to Hudson from Winter Haven. What was the experience like when you first walked into the Institute, got to meet everybody there, and had your imaging consultation?
It was so wonderfully set up. The patient intake worker took me around to the offices I need to go to. They just treated me like royalty. And from my first to my last surgery, there was nothing but wonderful treatment. All my needs were saw to. They cared. They asked. they made sure I was no longer in pain before they let me leave.
Sharon, what was that initial consultation like with, I understand you saw Dr. Grossmith at the Institute. So what was that initial consultation like?
It was mind-blowing. He did not ask me any question initially. He put my MRI up on the screen, and he told me what I was experiencing and where my pain was. He looked at me and said, am I right or am I wrong? I said, you are 100% back. I don't know how you can do that, but he knew exactly what surgery I needed to alleviate pain. He knew which one to do first. I went back and had the surgery, the first surgery. A couple days later, I had the second one. Initially, I wound up having 5 surgeries to fix the things that I needed done.
Well, that's another thing, Sharon, that a lot of people don't understand is that it's a process. It's a sequence that you often have to go through to correct all of that damage and all of that pain. A lot of people think we live in the world of instant gratification that, well, why can't you just fix it the first time? Well, it's incremental, so sometimes it does take 1, 2, in your case, 5 different procedures to fix the pain. Describe your experience in the operating room, conscious IV sedation. You're awake, alert, and aware, but yet the
You're
pain
relaxed and pain-free.
There you go. Well put. And able to communicate with the surgeon. Explain your thoughts on that.
Yes, that there actually was a television screen or a screen there that I was laying on my stomach, and I could actually watch that screen and see everything the doctor was doing. And I had mild sedation, very mild, and when he was finished, he said, before we're done, I want you to move and tell me if you feel pain anymore at that site. I probably made a fool out of myself because I couldn't stop moving once I found out I could, because I had never been able to do that in many, many years. And the incision was a small incision. That was the miracle of it all, is that small incision, no pain. I could get up and walk on my feet. In 2 or 3 days, it was like I'd never even had the surgery. I was feeling so good. There was no lengthy recovery period. It was phenomenal.
Sharon, after the surgery, how long was it before you were up and moving around and beginning to be mobile again?
I went into the recovery room just to make sure I wasn't going to be nauseous or anything. So probably within an hour, I was on my feet.
Wow, that's impressive. And then, of course, as you mentioned, you had 5 procedures. And I'm guessing after each one, the pain got less and less. You felt more and more normal. And this was over the course of, a lot of times they do these procedures almost back to back. I mean, not, not the same day, not every other day, but in a matter of a couple of months. You extended yours, I'm reading, over a 4-year period.
I did.
And obviously, it took a while for you to go through all of those procedures, probably due to your own schedule and whatnot. Not necessarily always like that, but how are you doing today?
I did. I scheduled them over that 4-year period because, you know what, after being in such excruciating pain, after the first couple, I was like, I feel so much better. Mm-hmm. The thing was that there were different areas that needed to be corrected and treated. So instead of having it all at one time, which would have been much harder,
sure,
we let each area, resolve on its own after he'd done my surgery, and then I would go back. And, of course, it was working and everyday life getting involved in it.
Sure.
Absolutely.
That's an excellent point that you bring out, though. So many people who come to the Bonati Spine Institute, there's initial pain that is so severe that once that's eliminated, the doctors are able to see some secondary issues. And in your case, it sounds like that was the case.
Mm-hmm.
That was the case. Once you're relieved from that initial most excruciating pain, which is what they try to treat first, you are so relieved, still kind of pain. It'll take several months before you realize they're right. This other step up at this other vertebrae is actually causing me pain here and here. And you come to realize those doctors, they know what they're talking about. Exactly.
Now, in hindsight, it's been a couple years since you were at the Institute. Sounds like you're feeling a lot better. would you feel comfortable recommending someone to go through the Bonati procedure if needed?
Absolutely. I would go back in a heartbeat if I needed to, without any reservation. My experience was nothing short of incredible.
Excellent. Well, we're glad that you're feeling well, and continued good health to you. And obviously, if anything happens, you know who to call, but hopefully you will remain in good health. And we appreciate you joining us on American Medicine Today, Sharon.
Thank you so much. God bless you all.
Same to you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
But like we were saying, and Bonati talks about that all the time, because it's really, I forget the term, he has a term that he uses for the fact that it's incremental, and that sometimes people's pain and damage is so severe, it requires more than one surgery.
Ethan, we call that incremental surgery.
That's what I just said, Dr. Bonati.
We love the doc. We're only teasing in fun.
Yep, and because he's not here to give us the death wish. But yeah, and he complains a lot of times. He doesn't complain, but Doc says people might need 3 surgeries. They have that first one and feel great already.
Oh, no, I'm fine.
They still need those 2 surgeries, but then they bail on it's a treatment plan. That's what he calls it. Then they bail on the treatment plan because they're like, I feel fantastic. And doctor's like, no, you need to come back.
In a couple months, they call, reschedule that second one.
Right, But everybody's experience is different. If you are in pain and suffering, give a call to the Bonati Spine Institute, 855-267-0482, or, of course, visit Bonati.com. Coming up next, we're going to talk to David Perlmutter. I keep wanting to say Perlmutter, but I think it's Mutter. Anyway, he's a neurologist, wrote a book called Grain Brain, which is all about your diet and how it can be linked to depression, ADHD, Parkinson's, and things like that. So we'll see what he has to say coming up next.
Revolutionary in his field, Dr. Bonati created, perfected, and patented the Bonati spine procedures. Using his genius, Bonati invented precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Bonati spine procedures, they consistently reflect 98.75% patient satisfaction. 50,000 successful procedures have been performed exclusively at our location. Over half our patients have suffered from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Bonati succeeds where others fail.
This is the first time that I am pain-free after 18 years, and it's just wonderful. I love it.
Phenomenal results, no pain whatsoever.
My pain is virtually gone, nothing short of a miracle.
Those surgeries gave me my life back.
Already I feel like a new person.
I'm going home new. I can chase my grandbaby now, I can garden, I can cook, and I'm really thrilled. The outcome has been remarkable.
I feel 100% better.
It's like a miracle.
It was phenomenal. It literally did change my life.
I was in a wheelchair at that time, and I left here walking.
Every single pain that I had when I came here is gone.
I'm ready to go home and feel great. This place is great. Thank you.
Everything that they said they would do, they have done, and I'm very, very satisfied and happy with those results.
I knew in surgery, in fact, I told the surgeon when he relieved the pain off the nerve.
The pain is gone. I'm feeling wonderful.
I have no pain. I feel better than I felt in 4 years from the surgery. It was almost immediate relief.
Today I am totally pain-free, which is just amazing. It's fantastic.
It definitely works. I mean, I really don't know what else to tell you. I'm happy.
You're listening to American Medicine Today, presented by the Bonati Spine Institute, featuring the internationally acclaimed inventor of the Bonati spine procedures, Alfred Bonati, MD. Once again, here are Dr. Bonati and your host, Kimberly Vermel.
Actually, Kimberly and Doc not here today, but I am, Ethan Euchre, and my friend here, Jeff Wagstaff, holding the fort down. Jeff?
Yes, I am. Doing my best to fill in while Doc and Kimberly are away.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, they're on a mission that's classified. We will not speak about that. Some great guests on the show today, including this guy, David Perlmutter, MD, board-certified neurologist and New York Times best-selling author of I always want to say the brain game for some reason. The Grain Brain Whole Life Plan, which shows you how to prevent migraines, ADHD, Alzheimer's, and depression simply by changing your diet. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Perlmutter.
Well, I'm delighted to be here, Jay. Thank you.
And I know especially the ADHD part sort of touched a nerve in Jeff because during the break he was kind of getting into all of that.
Doctor, as a young child, I'm 53 years old. I was diagnosed as a kid as hyperactive. Mm-hmm. I couldn't sit still. I was all over the place. I was a very energetic young man. My folks took me to the doctor. They felt that I needed to be medicated to treat this hyperactivity. And after a few months of basically having a medicated lobotomy, my folks described it as I just kind of turned into half of what I was. Walk around the house, I lost energy. My folks decided, look, we will install mattresses on the walls and let him bounce off those mattresses rather than drug him. And that was the last treatment I had ever received until I was an adult. And in working in this radio industry, one of the ladies I worked with just assumed, because I knew her very well, her child had ADHD and ADD really, really bad. She just assumed I had been diagnosed from working so closely with me, which caused me to go to a doctor. I was diagnosed. But bottom line, I'm blown away by this entire concept and can't wait to hear how a diet may be able to help me.
It's a great introduction. And, first let me just say that I think that clearly there's a tendency these days to overdiagnose. And I think all parents and teachers alike would love to have a room full of children who sit very quietly in their chairs and do their homework and are the model pupil, the one we've always wanted. But, we live in a spectrum of various types of behavior and restlessness and ability to concentrate. And I think to some degree we have to embrace that some kids just aren't really wired to being able to sit down and complete the task, et cetera. The notion that 6.4 million American children right now are diagnosed with ADHD, and 2/3 of them are medicated with medications whose long-term side effects have never been studied, it's a bit daunting to think about that. Do I think there is value in medicating some children? I do, no question, and adults for that matter as well. But I think that, the due diligence on our part as treating physicians is first, above all, do no harm. Let's look at those lifestyle issues that may be playing a role here, whether it's a child who isn't sleeping well, who may have food allergies, who's eating way too much sugar and not enough fiber and fat. There are a variety of factors. I mean, sometimes it's as simple as getting a kid some glasses. I mean, we've got to do our due diligence and look at multiple factors before we take that very next, very big step, and that is medicating children. It's very, very clear that diet has a huge role to play in the composure of children and their ability to concentrate, as it does in adults. When we create inflammation in the body by eating foods to which a person may be sensitive, by increased levels of sugar and carbs in the diet, inflammation is like static on the line. It's like trying to listen to an FM radio station during a thunderstorm. You don't get all the message. You don't get all the music. And that's why there's such power in making dietary changes. And again, I really want to state for your listeners that by no means am I suggesting that diet alone is a cure for ADHD.
Right.
I think everyone heard me loud and clear that there is a time and a place for medication. I write prescriptions. But the point is, I think to be fair to people, and children especially, we've got to give them at least the benefit of trying these lifestyle changes first.
Well, let's get into some of that because, again, the book is called Grain Brain, and you actually talk about in the book how you say our brains have not yet evolved to handle the foods that we eat nowadays. Explain that.
Well, that's right. I mean, basically our genome has changed very little in 70, 90,000 years. This is the genome of our ancestors, and our DNA interacts very vigorously and continuously with our environment, and that environment includes not just where we're living, but the foods that we're eating. The foods that we consume send signals to our DNA and tell our DNA to express certain genes and shut down other genes. Suddenly, the type of food signaling going on in this scenario, what we call epigenetics, has changed dramatically in the past couple of hundred years, with sugar consumption, for example, going from about 5 pounds a year to now about 120 pounds a year per person in America, which is
unbelievable,
breathtaking. But beyond that, we recognize that we are also dramatically changing our gut bacteria, the microbiome that live within us, the 100 trillion organisms in our gut that make neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine. When we change the gut bacteria because of our food changes, because of bombarding the gut with medications like antibiotics and non-steroid anti-inflammatories and antacid drugs like proton pump inhibitors, what those bacteria put out changes. It increases inflammation. It even changes the level of the important neurotransmitters, things like serotonin, and dopamine, the happy reward chemical. So this is how our environment has changed, and has changed with respect to not only signaling directly to our genome, but indirectly through the changes in the gut bacteria.
Hey, Doc, let me jump in real quick because we're a syndicated show, so we're up against a hard break in about a minute. But what kind of a diet would you recommend for somebody whose child may be diagnosed and they want to begin the process of treatment by addressing the diet first?
Well, again, this is in the book, the Grain Brain Whole Life Plan. But beyond that, the short answer is get rid of sugar, get rid of artificial sweeteners, NutraSweet, etc. Increase healthy fat. Eat more fat, olive oil, coconut oil, nuts and seeds, fatty foods, avocado, salmon. And perhaps most importantly, get more fiber into the diet, especially the type of fiber that is called prebiotic fiber. That's what nurtures the gut bacteria.
Perfect. All right. Well, a lot more to be read in the Grain Brain Whole Life Plan from board-certified neurologist, best-selling author David Perlmutter, MD. Thanks for joining us on
My pleasure.
American
Thank
Medicine
you. Have
Today.
A great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Very interesting stuff, and more interesting stuff on the way. But first, we want to mention, if you or a loved one are in pain, you want to give a call to Dr. Bonati. Neck, back, migraines, sciatica, what have you. A lot of details can be had mostly at Bonati.com.
Jump on the line and research it. You owe it to yourself if you're experiencing this, because the more you look, the more you will know that Dr. Bonati is the right choice. Bonati.com, or give them a call
at 855-267-0482.
We know you have a lot of choices, and we want to thank you, whether you're tuning into this show for the first time or you listen to us every weekend. We sincerely appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next week.
This is the first time that I am pain-free after 18 years. And it's just wonderful. I love it.
Phenomenal results. No pain whatsoever.
My pain is virtually gone. Nothing short of a miracle.
Those surgeries gave me my life back.
Already, I feel like a new person.
I'm going home new. I can chase my grandbaby now. I can garden. I can cook. And I'm really thrilled. The outcome has been remarkable.
I feel 100% better.
It's like a miracle.
It was phenomenal. It literally did change my life.
I was in a wheelchair at that time, and I left here walking.
Every single pain that I had when I came here is gone.
I'm ready to go home and feel great. This place is great. Thank you.
Everything that they said they would do, they have done, and I'm very, very satisfied and happy with those results.
I knew in surgery, in fact, I told the surgeon when he relieved the pain off the nerve.
The pain is gone. I'm feeling wonderful.
I have no pain. I feel better than I felt in 4 years from the surgery. It was almost immediate relief.
Today I am totally pain-free, which is just amazing. It's fantastic.
It definitely works. I mean, I really don't know what else to tell you. I'm happy.
You're listening to American Medicine Today, presented by the Bonati Spine Institute, featuring the internationally acclaimed inventor of the Bonati Spine procedures, Alfred Bonati, MD. Once again, here are Dr. Bonati and your host, Kimberly Bermel.
Thank you for joining us on American Medicine Today. I'm Kimberly Bermel, joined by my friends Ethan Euchre.
Glad to be here.
And Jeff Wagstaff.
Thanks for having me.
Our next guest is a complete medical marvel. Doctors claim he is the only person in the world to have lived after having 5 arteries severed, and they can't explain why. He also claims to have had a near-death experience that convinced him that angels are among us. He is Bruce Venata. Thanks for being here, Bruce.
Well, thanks for having me on your show.
What an incredible story.
Yeah, it's even been featured on the Discovery Channel. The History Channel has featured Bruce's story. So take us back to that day in November of 2006 and how an accident changed your life forever, Bruce.
I owned a company where I went around and did on-site diesel repair, and that particular day I was working on a huge Peterbilt logging truck. This truck is about as big as any semi-truck you're going to see anywhere. The gentleman that I was working with, the mechanic that actually worked at that place, had jacked that truck up in the front. These big trucks got a big front axle in the front that weighs, the weight on those 2 front tires is like 10 to 12,000 pounds, so 5 to 6 tons of weight on the axle. Wow. He had jacked that axle up, removed one of the wheels. I'd done engine repair. I just finished up the engine repair. It was at the end of the day. I was just getting ready to go home, and the guy said, "Hey, before you go, could you look at one more thing?" And he had an oil leak in the front of this engine, so I ended up going underneath the truck, underneath this big axle that was jacked up, laying on a creeper, a little tool that mechanics use to go underneath vehicles. So I went underneath the axle, and he went up inside the truck. The jack slipped out, and when it did, that axle came down and crushed me across the middle like a blunt guillotine. So you have 10 to 12,000 pounds of weight coming down and just crashing to the cement. And the only thing that was between it and the cement was my body. So I ended up, on impact, when this thing crushed me, basically it fell between my ribs and my pelvic from the left to the right, side to side is where the axle was. And I was laying parallel with the center line of the truck, just underneath the front. And so when it fell and crashed across the middle, the blood actually shot up out of the inside of from the inside of my body out of my mouth. Wow. And landed a big blob next to my head. Oh. And I just called out and said, "God help me." And the guy got down to the truck, and he went into shock when he saw my body crushed in half. There was like 1 inch of space between the bottom of the axle and the cement on the left side and 2 inches on the right side. So my body was 1 inch thick on the left, 2 inches thick on the right, and the space basically, between from the bottom of your ribs to your pelvic all the way across there was flat like a pancake.
That's insane.
And the guy just completely, he lost it. And I was begging him to call 911. He called 911. He couldn't figure out how to get it up off of me because he had the jack underneath the axle. The axle's now on the cement.
Oh, God.
I can't believe you stayed conscious, Bruce. That's
You think you'd be blacked out.
Oh, immediately.
But your head wasn't under the truck, or it was?
My whole body was under the truck, but just the part that fell across was just like about 4 inches wide. It was sticking down the lowest point of the truck.
Oh, my God.
Man.
So that part,
what goes through
like the guillotine and crushed me across the middle.
Wow.
What goes through your mind at that time? What thoughts race through your mind?
Well, first of all, it was incredible pain. I mean, I can't even tell you how bad it hurt. But the next thing was that it was probably going to kill me, that I was going to die, because as I'm looking at my body, I'm only 1 inch thick. I mean, if you can picture it, it's hard to kind of describe, but I'm laying on my back. This large piece of metal has fallen across the middle of my body from side to side. I can't see the lower half of my body from my vantage point basically laying on the cement. And there's just that little bit of gap between the bottom of the axle on the left and maybe 2 inches on the right. So I know my body is crushed flat across the middle.
So what happens at that point?
So he calls 911. He ends up jacking the truck up off my body, and it's at that point that I can see my whole body. And the thought that came to my mind is it looked like it's something like out of a cartoon, a large flat spot.
Well, I bet it really hurt
the middle section of my body. And so I was just panicking and go into shock. 5 arteries severed, 5 places major arteries were severed, so I'm now beginning to bleed out once he jacked the truck up off of me. And so I'm begging him to get me off from underneath the truck. He didn't want to, so I reached back, and I was just underneath the front. I grabbed the bottom of the big bumper with my hands, and basically in an adrenaline rush, I dragged my body out maybe a foot, just so now my head and shoulders are now sticking out from underneath the front bumper. And the first responders got there from a local volunteer fire department because it's in a very rural area of Wisconsin.
Right.
And they got there, and I started to get weaker and weaker, and it was at about that point when I bled out. So when I bled out internally, no more heartbeat, no more pulse, and it was at that point I had a near-death experience. My spirit left my body, and I went up the roof of the garage up about 15 feet.
Now, Bruce, let's
in perfect peace.
Yes,
it felt amazing.
And let's talk about that, because this is not only is it just a medical marvel of how you were put back together and you survived, but Kimberly and myself are, and even Jeff to an extent, are very interested in just the specifics of these near-death experiences. I've been reading about it for 20 years. So you said you left your body. Were you able to look down upon your body? Describe the scene for us.
Yeah, I just watched from at a vantage point up about 15 feet, which is pretty typical just from near-death experiences. Like as you said, you've been studying. There's 8 to 10 million people, based on studies right now in the world, 8 to 10 million people alive who've had out-of-body experience or near-death experience. So my spirit is up in the ceiling. I'm watching from above, completely disconnected from the accident. And one cool thing to note is I watched the people all come into the accident scene. 8 of them came from the front door, 2 came in the back door. And when I spoke to the volunteer fire department a year later, when I got out of the hospital, just to tell them thank you, I was able to pick out 8 of the 10 people who had come to see the accident. Oh, wow. And of those 8, I picked out the 2 people who had come in the back door, and just asked them in front of everybody, why did you come in the back door when everybody else came in the front door? Just because the configuration, the way the garage is laid out and everything, it didn't make sense to me. And they had a simple reason. They had missed the first driveway, caught a secondary driveway, come in the back. But what it does is that little details prove
legitimacy.
That I was in the ceiling.
Right, because
otherwise there's no way I could have seen it.
Right, because you're technically dead on the floor with no heartbeat, and you said, as you mentioned, you're out of your body watching this happen. So how can science even explain that?
Exactly.
If it's not real.
And medicine comes up with some reasons why people have out-of-body experiences, but it denies the spiritual aspect, and it just says it's simply a physical body function. If that were true, then I wouldn't be able to have given the fact that I saw 2 people come in the back door and 8 people come in the front door.
Okay. Bruce, walk us through that experience, your state of mind, when you realized, I'm not under the truck, I'm above the truck. Walk us through that whole experience.
Well, I was so disconnected from what was going on below, I didn't even realize that the guy underneath the truck was hurt. I realized he was hurt, but I didn't realize that the guy that was hurt was me, rather. I didn't know that person down there was me. So I'm just watching from above in a perfect sense of peace. I mean, I felt amazing. And the crazy thing was, on each side of my body, I'm watching the medical workers, I'm watching everybody and all the stuff, but the guy that I'm working with, he had jacked up the truck and not used any safety equipment. So he felt responsible. He's crying. He's apologizing. I'm listening to him from above saying stuff like, I should be the one that's dead, not you. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I'm just watching all from above. And then all of a sudden, there are these 2 huge angels on each side of my body, about 8 feet tall, based off the other people who are, Leonard is about 6 feet tall, and these angels, their heads stuck up about 2 feet taller than him. Okay. They didn't talk to me. I didn't communicate with them in any way, shape, or form. They didn't have wings. Just large men about 8 feet tall with long hair, long blonde hair, white shining robes, and they had their hands in the middle of my body where I was crushed flat. So I'm just watching it all from above. And it seemed very matter of fact. It wasn't like it was, at that point, it didn't seem overly spectacular. It just seemed very, just matter of fact. I'm just watching this happen, and, I could see that those angels were down there trying to help that guy.
Okay. So you knew that they were there to bring help?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I knew they were there to bring help for that guy that's hurt underneath the truck, but I didn't realize that guy under the truck was me at that point.
Bruce, after you spoke with the physicians who put you back together, and you had said that it's very unusual for somebody to live through what you went through, were there any unexplained medical aspects to where you felt like those angels laid hands? Was there any connection to how you were hurt and how you recovered with that connection?
Yeah. University of Southern California had done a large study right before my accident happened on the mortality rate of arteries being severed. So they take my case, compare it against that study, and make the claim that at this point, I'm the only person in the world they can find that's had a major artery severed in 5 places and lived. And they say if you have 1 major artery severed, you're going to bleed to death if you can't stop the bleeding, 8 to 10 minutes. Wow. I had 5. And it was 2 hours and 40 minutes from the minute the truck fell on me until they put those arteries back together. 2 hours and 40 minutes. I should have bled to death at about, with multiple arteries, they say, 3-4 minutes I should have bled out completely. And that's the point that I did bleed out. That's the point that I lost consciousness and my spirit left my body, when my heart stopped and I, no more pulse, no more heartbeat. But yet, when the angels showed up and they were touching me in the middle where I was crushed flat, I mentioned 2 of the people came in the back door. Well, one of them, her name is Shannon Seeley, and she's been interviewed by several TV shows. She got down between those angels, and what I didn't know is that she was a Christian lady. I'd never met her. She began to pray and ask God to bring me back to life. And they're not going to do CPR because I have a chest injury. They're not going to do a defibrillator because I bled out. And this woman prayed me back to life, and that's when my spirit came back into my body. And the first thing I did when I came back in, my heart started, obviously. My eyes opened, I'm looking at her. I looked on either side of my body for the angels, but I couldn't see, they weren't there that I could see with these fleshly eyes. Mm-hmm. But it's incredible pain comes, and then I realized I was the guy underneath the truck, and it all came back to me, and then I said I couldn't deal with it anymore. So I made the choice to leave. My spirit left my body. My heart stopped again. I went up back in the roof of the garage watching from above. The lady prayed me back in again the second time. And I believe at that point is when God spoke to me and said, if you want to live, you're going to have to fight, and it's going to be a hard fight. I decided not to because it hurt too bad. I left the third time. And when I left the third time, my spirit went up to the roof of the ceiling. A tunnel opened up, and I got into the tunnel going towards a bright light, going up at about a 45-degree angle. The lady prayed me back the third time. I came back in my body the last time. And then she said, Mister, you're on the verge of life and death. What do you have to fight for? Do you have a wife? Do you have children? Do you have anything in this world to fight for? I remembered Lori, my wife, our 4 small children, and I decided I couldn't fight for me because it hurt too bad, but I could fight for them. And that's when it happened. And then, again, so the 2 hours and 40 minutes go by before I get med-flighted to the largest trauma center in the state, get put back together, and doctors said, they couldn't understand how I made it there considering the length of time, and it made no sense to them. And then they studied the case for a year at this university hospital, and then at the end just said, it makes no sense. There's no medical reason why you should have ever made it, but, made it here. And I know it's because of the angels.
And Bruce, I know that when you first arrived at the hospital and the surgeons opened you up, they described it as your insides looked like a bunch of mush, just because, I mean, obviously you had been crushed by tons and tons of weight. Yeah. Almost out of time, but your recovery must have been taking years and been very difficult, I'm sure. One other interesting tidbit, there was a guy from New York also named Bruce who, tell us, if you can, in just a minute or so, what he did and how it affected your intestines. That's really interesting.
When the truck fell across the midsection of my body, spleen, pancreas, small intestines, L4, L5 vertebrae cracked. I mean, everything across the middle. I mean, I was thinner than my spine just a little bit because when it fell down, it hit the L4, L5 vertebrae from the top all the way going through, right? So everything that's in there was crushed and wrecked, and they removed almost all my small intestines. Adults have 18 to 20-some feet of small intestine. I had approximately, 2.5 to 3 feet. One of those pieces then died. It wasn't enough for me to I couldn't eat and live, so they're feeding me intravenously. Okay. They gave me about a year to live at the most, so I spend this year in the hospital. In the middle of all that, this guy comes from New York, said God had woke him up 2 mornings in a row and told him, buy plane tickets, fly to Wisconsin, pray for this guy in the hospital, and he was going to do a miracle. And when he did, the guy came and prayed for me, laid his hands on me, prayed in the name of Jesus, and immediately, instantaneously, I got 9 to 11 feet, so exactly half of my intestine, small intestine, came back instantaneously. And what's so cool is there's a zillion CAT scans, X-rays, MRIs, all these radiological exams and pictures before and after, so it can't be, nobody can argue with it. And so you mentioned History Channel. When History Channel did my story, they actually tried to disprove it. And they took 24 stories, miracle stories from around the world. They used mine. They saved it for the last story, last episode on a show called Miracles Decoded. And it was the only one out of 24 they couldn't medically disprove because there was so much documentation. I mean, they got before and afters of everything, the arteries, all that. They read all that in the reports, but then the before and after pictures of the intestines. And the intestine doesn't grow back. So
exactly. Unbelievable story.
I'm trying not to cry because I really believe things happen for a reason, and you are truly, truly blessed.
Mm-hmm. Well, we appreciate you joining us, Bruce. Incredible story. Do you have a website, or I know you have a couple of books or something, don't you?
Yeah, I wrote a book called Saved by Angels, the first one, and then I wrote another book called A Miraculous Life, and this website is sweetbreadministries.com. I ended up starting after this accident, I stopped my business, started a ministry a nonprofit organization. We built a couple orphanages. We built a church. Right now, we just finished building a school in Honduras that has almost 300 kids at it.
Wow.
We do feedings, for poor people that don't have food, for orphans and widows and stuff like that. So I look at it, my life is just a second chance to try and give back and tell people, look, this whole thing with spirituality. I mean, I came out of, a life of drugs and alcohol and partying and just going to the clubs and stuff back in the day and living for myself. And now it's like I just want to give back and say there is a spiritual element to our reality, and we have to think about that.
Absolutely.
There certainly is. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on American Medicine Today and telling us and sharing with us
Thanks for having me.
your story.
Thank
you
you,
so
Bruce.
much. Continued good health. Bruce Van Natta, thank you.
Thank you
for being on the program.
Have a great one. Bye-bye.
Make sure you stay tuned, because coming up after the break, you'll hear more American Medicine Today. Revolutionary in his field, Dr. Bonatti created, perfected, and patented the Bonatti spine procedures. Using his genius, Bonatti invented precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Bonatti spine procedures, they consistently reflect 98.75% patient satisfaction. 50,000 successful procedures have been performed exclusively at our location. Over half our patients have suffered from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Bonatti succeeds where others fail.
You're listening to American Medicine Today, presented by the Bonatti Spine Institute, featuring the internationally acclaimed inventor of the Bonatti spine procedures, Alfred Bonatti, MD. Once again, here are Dr. Bonatti and your host, Kimberly Brumell.
Actually, Kimberly Brumell on the line, live from Hawaii. That's how dedicated she is to this program. Girl is on vacation. It's what? Is it like, I don't know. It's super early. That's
Very
what.
early.
That's what we know.
7-something in the morning, yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't wait to be part of the show, and was upset that you guys are going to be able to do this all without me.
I know. I just couldn't believe you're going on vacation, and you requested that we call you because you wanted to talk about the election. But that brings me to the fact we normally do What's New in Medicine Today, but Jeff, in lieu of a Trump victory, wanted to do a special version.
Let's talk about what's right in America today, Dr. Bonatti.
Let's look at what's new in medicine today, featuring Alfred Bonatti, MD.
So, Doc, you must be pretty pumped up, of course. I kind of want to get both of your guys' take on what you were doing at the time. Obviously, it was a shock to the nation. You guys, especially you and Kimberly, have been shaking the pom-poms all along, as I like to say, for Trump, cheerleading for Trump. So it couldn't have been as shocking to you guys, right?
Yeah, I called her around 3 o'clock in the morning, and she was jumping all over and screaming. So I knew that she was totally... And after that, she wasn't able to talk.
Right.
So she lost her voice.
That's right around when your voice went out, wasn't it, Kimberly?
It was. It was just such a fascinating evening because it was something that was so crucial for our country. And to have read all the newspaper headlines and see all the voter fraud that was out there, we believed he would win, but it's totally against all odds. So all of a sudden, when you saw things were close in the highly Democrat states, it was like sitting on the edge of your seat, biting your fingernails, like, he's got to get it, he's got to get it. He got, North Carolina, he got Ohio, he got Florida. And I was watching like a point something swing each way, and I was like, oh, God, please, please don't let anybody tamper with the votes that are in.
You know what I thought was interesting is that we're based out of Tampa, Florida, of course, heard all around the state. Hillsborough County, where Tampa is located, what are the figures? Do you know what I'm talking about, Jeff? It's like 11 of the last 12 elections. However, Hillsborough County went, so did the nation.
And that was true.
It was true until this one,
election.
because our county was the majority. Hillary won our county, and yet Trump pulled out the victory. So,
Kimberly, you said something that I think you really hit on something important when you said against all odds.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, though, if that's accurate, because...
But it was, because you had the liberal media set up to make him foul, and it didn't matter what feat he made, how many people were at his rallies. They would only zoom in on him, maybe show a few. If by chance you found somebody at one of these stations that would allow the true Trump experience to happen, you may see the crowd. But overwhelmingly, Every other station was dead set against him. They didn't want him to win. They were all in the bag for Clinton.
And that's kind of my point.
They would conveniently forget what Bill Clinton did, and he would still be part of it, regardless of the fact that Hillary would win. Everyone's like, well, so what? It's not about Hillary. Yeah, but her pervert of a husband would have been in tow. The other thing, go ahead.
The thing is I think the reason that we all believed it was against all odds was because of the spin that the media put against it. Every single television outlet, minus Fox, didn't give Trump a chance. The pollsters didn't give him a chance, which proves that they don't really have a clue what they're doing.
Right.
And
and even Fox was doing some type of a dancing around that they were not really on his benefit.
They never really were on board.
No, they were never on board. And the only one who was on board, though, was Hannity and sometimes O'Reilly.
But I mean, the media even let us believe that if there was if Trump was elected, that the markets would crash. It would be the Great Depression. The exact opposite happened. They initially dropped slightly, and then the markets have gone crazy. And by the grace of God, the last few days have been very prosperous for those who invest in the market.
And did you hear China and Putin, and I believe even Mexico, have already written Donald Trump, saying they want to work together?
Yeah.
The country's never seen anything like it since the day Ronald Reagan was elected.
All the thing is, though,
I mean,
this is superior than Ronald
politics
Reagan.
on its head.
Go ahead, Doc.
This is even better than Ronald Reagan. Not only because Ronald Reagan was still a politician, he still needs to float between some ideas, but this man comes with a tremendous amount of business knowledge and very forceful. So I do believe that this is the blessing for America. When I woke up the day after the election, I look at the sky and was bright, and I felt like somebody removed shackles from my legs and hands, because I felt free. I already saw again, America has again the opportunity to have the dream, the opportunity, the business, and shine like everyone who comes to America thinks that this is the only place in the world where you have the opportunity to be yourself. And I thought that were robbing us for the people who lives in the country and the people who will come to the country trying to be Americans.
But here's the thing, Jeff touched on something when he said that it was a lot of depression. They thought the world was going to tailspin into a depression. The depression I saw were some liberal teachers that were crying because they didn't know how to tell the children. And I thought, well, maybe if you didn't disparage Trump, you wouldn't have so much double talking to do now.
Well, the world is all...
The only depression I see are the liberals going, how could it happen to us? Boo-hoo. And then they're lighting fires everywhere because, those are just peaceful protest.
That's such a great demonstration of love trumps hate.
And right, exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, Kimberly, listen, we're out of time. I know you're probably going to hang around for our affiliate segment, right? Correct?
Will do.
All right, so I'm going to put you on hold. We'll be back with you and a lot more to talk about, of course. Saying goodbye to our affiliate station, WFLA in Tampa, and continuing on next with more talk of the election. Stick around. It's American Medicine Today.
This is the first time that I am pain-free after 18 years. And it's just wonderful. I love it.
Phenomenal results. No pain whatsoever.
My pain is virtually gone. Nothing short of a miracle.
Those surgeries gave me my life back.
Already, I feel like a new person.
I'm going home new. I can chase my grandbaby now. I can garden. I can cook. And I'm really thrilled. The outcome has been remarkable.
I feel 100% better.
It's like a miracle.
It was phenomenal. It literally did change my life.
I was in a wheelchair at that time, and I left here walking.
Every single pain that I had when I came here is gone.
I'm ready to go home and feel great. This place is great. Thank you.
Everything that they said they would do, they have done, and I'm very, very satisfied and happy with those results.
I knew in surgery, in fact, I told the surgeon when he relieved the pain off the nerve.
The pain is gone. I'm feeling wonderful.
I have no pain. I feel better than I felt in 4 years from the surgery. It was almost immediate relief.
Today I am totally pain-free, which is just amazing. It's fantastic.
It definitely works. I mean, I really don't know what else to tell you. I'm happy.
To American Medicine Today, presented by the Bonati Spine Institute, featuring the internationally acclaimed inventor of the Bonati spine procedures, Alfred Bonati, MD. Once again, here are Dr. Bonati and your host, Kimberly Brumell.
Actually, Kimberly and Doc not here this week, but Jeff Wagstaff hanging out. I am Ethan Euchre. How's it going, Jeff?
Couldn't be better.
Excellent, excellent. Still talking about President Trump, the inauguration. A lot of good stuff to talk about. We wanted to continue the conversation with our friend Michael Dougherty. He is the author of Devil Inside the Beltway. The website is thedevilinsidethebeltway.com. How's it going, Mike?
It's going well. How are you?
I am good. Go ahead, Jeff.
Michael, I'm all fired up about something, and I want to get your opinion.
Uh-oh.
As long as I have been alive, no matter how the election is gone, at the end of the day, the parties come together. We as a country celebrate the peaceful transfer of power, not necessarily that person that's elected, but the process. And this year, that's not happening. We've got dozens of congressmen who are sitting out. I personally feel like it's a tragedy. I feel like it's un-American.
People are either pissed or they're gloating. That seems to be the division of the population. They're either pissed that Trump's in office or they're gloating that he's in office. And then there's people like me who are just kind of like, well, it's our president, so deal with it. You know?
Where do you come in on all this?
Well, I think that someone during the inauguration had a very good point. I forget who it was about, it not showing up is very unsupportive of other Democrats that did show up. And this is, I think, we could see the Democratic Party imploding right before our eyes, as far as they are now. They've been taken over by extremists. Barack Obama was an extreme, radical, liberal guy who tried to hide it as long as he could because he knew it would have never gotten him elected. And as he got more and more in place, it became more evident. Extremely evident so that people were stunned when he won again, and very clearly evident when he told the Russians, I can do more after I win again, when he said that in 2008. So I think it's a long time coming because I think it's just a reset. When you go extreme, then you have extreme pushback in anything that gets off balance, and the Obama administration was extremely off balance, and so that drives a lot of fighting. As far as the specific people that stood up, they're all, that didn't show up. They're all in very safe districts. Very few, if any, leadership positions. They're just doing what they do, which unfortunately now is all they've got. They have, if you look at the advances of the African American community in the last 60 years, they've been terrible. So these people now only have rhetoric. They do, and fear and emotional stirring, and it's sad because they exploit their own. And it's not like 50, 60 years ago when it was a new world and these were new civil rights and they were going to build a bridge. There's many people that are exploiting their own in that movement, and that's what they're doing. And I think it will boomerang big time because Trump will start getting things done, and he's got Barack Obama was this double-edged sword. He was extremely personally popular. That's extremely rare. And his popularity was very detached from his policies. If people would judge him on just his policies and not him personally, he scored as low as anyone else in that situation. And he decimated and this is just what he did and didn't do. He decimated his party across local, state, and federal levels. He never visited his own party in Congress. I mean, behind the scenes, they should be be upset with him because it's extremely selfish. And since he never visited Congress, he thought he was a king, and he did extremist things and never reached across the aisle. And this is the hypocrisy of it all. They try to blame everyone else for this. He's the one that didn't reach across the aisle. He is the one that didn't negotiate. He is the one that filed executive orders like crazy, and executive orders can be wiped away by the next executive. So he has a very shallow legacy that won't be around long. So what do you see? You see temper tantrums in the street by people that are, many of them hired.
Yeah, paid protesters.
And during the inauguration in D.C., they were throwing batteries, they were throwing eggs, they were assaulting people, they were being, harassing, verbally abusive. I mean,
but they're so tolerant, those people.
I'm sorry?
I said, but they're so tolerant, the left. What are you talking about?
And Michael's...
Well, I mean, that's the thing. And this is, it's like, really, when someone shows you who they are, believe them.
True colors.
And
speaking of the inauguration, though, Michael...
The irony of Trump was that he just is not going to apologize for anything. And we are so hungry for authenticity that we'll take that over perfection. Mm-hmm. And, the best, most sophisticated seducer is Barack Obama. He is a magnificent seducer. But he never came through with the goods. And Trump is just, listen, word to the wise, those messages go right to the Republican establishment.
Michael, I want to jump in for a minute.
Those people are just as cowardly and ineffective.
I want to jump in, and you mentioned the inauguration. Looking back to Friday morning, the person that I have a newfound respect for, because it had to be very, very difficult. While there were some of the congressmen were sitting at home as a crybaby during the inauguration, Hillary Clinton put her big girl pants on.
And they are big girl pants.
Came to Washington, and it had to be tough. She was defeated and defeated soundly. But she came in, she shook Trump's hand, and she was about the process.
She womaned up.
Absolutely. So I really have a lot of respect for her because I can't imagine how difficult that would have been.
Well, you're much nicer than me.
What are your true thoughts?
It's good. It's good. It's good. But those people, this is the interesting thing about all this.
Uh-oh. There's that word.
Which I had to learn.
People.
No, but those people can be friends today and go outside in 3 seconds and say the most vicious things about each other and then go have coffee together. Mm-hmm. I mean, in so many ways, it's like theater. And although I do think there's extremely bad blood, I don't think you'll ever see the Clintons and the Trumps. Years might heal the divide. I don't know. I mean, the Bushes were very Washington establishment,
right?
Very born of the manor. So there, you see the Bushes and the Clintons still talking, and everyone just gets along great, and they probably even voted for Hillary and alluded they would. But that is the other thing that needs to be exposed, and people have to get specific understanding of this.
Trump
many ways, Washington, D.C. is one vote, not two. And on the right are the Republicans, and on the left are the Democrats, but the fact they're in different votes is an illusion. And, it is very much the bureaucracy way outnumbers the politicians, and the bureaucracy has grown under both parties, and that's who's writing the rules and enforcing things. And when the bureaucracy screws up, those elected officials do nothing.
Michael
and
Daughtry.
It's gotten to a huge tipping point.
Michael Daughtry, Obamacare analysis and author of Devil Inside the Beltway. Where can they get your book, Michael?
Amazon is the best place. It's an audiobook, ebook, hardcover, and softcover.
Perfect. All right. Friend
Thanks
of the
for
show,
joining us.
we love having you on, and I'm assuming we're going to have you on again down the road if the country doesn't erupt into chaos and flames and riots. So you take care of yourself, Mike.
Yeah, we made it this far. We'll be okay.
We'll be all right. All right. Have a good weekend.
All right, you too.
See ya. Devil Inside the Beltway, Michael Daughtry. He's a good dude. All right, well, that'll do it, Jeff. Again, the whole point of the show, even though Doc and Kimberly are not here, it is called American Medicine Today, even though we talk a lot of politics, current events. If you or someone you know is suffering from back, neck, sciatic pain, what have you, give a call. Dr. Bonati can fix you up. 855-267-0482. That's 855-267-0482. Or, of course, just visit Bonati.com. Any parting words, Jeff?
Thanks for listening. God bless America.
We're going to make it great again.
I'm excited.
Have a good weekend. See you.